Alrighty, guys, welcome back to iCoach Nutrition Radio. We've got the podcast going here for those that are listening, and then we've got us here on YouTube as well if you're watching. But today I get to interview a client that I've had the opportunity to work with now for, I guess it was right about a year or so, maybe just shy of that, something like that. But it's been an awesome journey, and I'm excited for him to be able to kind of share his journey of before we started working together, kind of the last year, and then where he's at now. So without further ado, Clark, what's up, brother? How are you?
Hey, I'm good, Justin. How are you?
You're good, man. I'm good. I was just commenting on, for those that you can see Clark here, I was just commenting on his swoosh that he's got. I wish I had some more hair, but I'm already balding. I have like the hairlines going back there, receding hairlines. Thanks, Dad. But dude, I want to kind of share your journey. Before we kind of do that, tell people a little bit more about kind of you and what you do, and then kind of dive into kind of where you were at before we started working together about a year ago.
Yeah. So, Justin and I got connected on Instagram because we're both Florida Gators fans, easily the best football team around, despite what many of our fellow Texans might say. Yeah, so I work for NBC and am a content creator for NBC. I'm a journalist by trade, and so I've been on TV for years, my whole career pretty much, and moved to Dallas about 2 years ago to help NBC launch a new channel called NBC LX, which produces documentary type content for younger kind of millennial Gen Z audiences. So I'm basically a mini documentarian and then do broadcasting daily across the country. So that's kind of what I do. And with that in mind, I'm obviously, in front of cameras a lot. And so appearance is part of that job. Justin, I mean, you'll probably remember when I came to you, I wasn't necessarily like crazy overweight or out of shape. I'd always kind of been an athletic on the go guy, certainly news reporting pre-COVID. We were moving a lot and on the road all the time. And so it's a pretty active job, all things considered. COVID's obviously changed that. And there's a lot of work from home situations going on. But what I really felt like and why I came to you, is that despite kind of keeping a regular kind of fitness regimen and being an active guy, et cetera, I was not seeing results like I wanted to. I worked out, I knew my way around a gym, knew some generic food knowledge, but signed up with you and for the first time really ever had done sort of concentrated food tracking. And that was pretty revealing. That was kind of, step one. And then step two was you and I looking at what I was doing from an activity standpoint and figuring out how to, fine tune that to match the goals that I was looking for. Some people come into a journey where they're looking for maybe a number, something, they want to weigh something or achieve, a fitness goal that they've had for a long time. For me, it was really, I wanted to see improved body composition and felt like I was working and not getting results, which is, the most frustrating thing ever, right? If you're not doing anything, it's kind of your own fault. But if you're doing something and not seeing the results, that's like, you're like screaming, why am I working hard and not getting anything in return? So, so that's kind of where we started. And at least in my mind, looking back, it sort of was phases. The first phase is we actually reverse dieted me up because we didn't believe that based on my height and weight at that time that I was really eating enough to enter a season that would allow me to work on my body composition and do so in a healthy way and give my body the fuel it needed to make those changes.
Yeah, definitely lots of seasons over the last year for sure. But yeah, kind of going back to the beginning there. So, even looking back to the initial questionnaire, like one of the questions was like, what's the number one issue preventing you from reaching your goals? And that's what you had said, right? It's like being so frustrated that here I am working out 4 days a week, an hour and a half a day, living a healthy, active lifestyle in general, but not being able to achieve the body composition goals that you were looking for because of the nutrition, knowledge, skill set, whatever you want to call it. And so I think you're definitely right, because most people, right, when they are sitting here and they're putting in the work, like they're trying to stay consistent with their workouts or whatever it may be. If they're not seeing results, then they're just like, well, what's the point? Like, why would I sit here and go put myself through working out or waking up early or whatever? And they just say, screw it. They go back to the old habits. So, kudos to you for wanting to, knowing that there was more to the equation and wanting to seek help. I remember when we first started working together, like we actually, like, you're a local guy. So we actually like met up and went to, I think, what was it, like Whole Foods or something like that?
Yeah, I think we did. That's right.
That was like in the very, very beginning, like when we first started working together there.
Yeah.
So that was a unique thing, because I mean, obviously with virtual coaching, like a lot of the times, like everything we do is like through the video,
right.
Zoom like this. So I think that combined with like the Florida Gator piece, I feel like that was like the know, like, and trust factor, just kind of like, shifted together.
Totally. Yeah, I remember on that trip too, and this is like a pro tip for everyone watching and listening. Olive oil cooking spray. Like if you're tracking your food, olive oil cooking spray was a complete game changer for me. I'm married, and my wife loves to like roast vegetables, and we're like olive oil people. We would cook with that a lot. And that was something I had no idea the number of calories I was consuming through olive oil, which obviously is like a nutritious product, but doesn't like fill you up. And so that was a huge pointer that you gave me during that trip that, that I carried through and now have changed. We've changed how we cook in the kitchen. We definitely have olive oil, but my wife always kind of giggles at me because like I'm grabbing like 3 cans of olive oil cooking spray, and she's like, you look crazy, and I'm like, well, it works, and the numbers work too, and so that's a great pro tip for all the grocery shoppers out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great example of like, olive oil. Nobody's going to argue that it's not good quality food, right? It is. It's got great healthy fats in it, but regardless of the quality, if you overconsume anything, it could potentially be bad. And like, if you're somebody that's trying to lose weight, lose body fat, improve body composition, and you aren't accounting for potentially the 400, 600, 800 calories of olive oil you're consuming, then yes, that could definitely play a role there. So Clark, kind of like walk us through, like, what were some of like the biggest accomplishments for you, like over that year? I mean, obviously there was weight loss, but kind of like dive into, or share that piece, but then kind of dive into what else you felt were kind of like the big accomplishments that you were able to achieve there over the last year.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we really had to break down with me is that like I had a sense over the years of trying to work on, body composition and my health of, what I'll sort of put in air quotes is like good and bad foods, right? Like I understood the difference between grilled chicken and fried chicken and how those, can impact your plans when it comes to your health. But as I just pointed out, I didn't have any consciousness about olive oil in like liquid form versus olive oil spray, cooking spray. So I think we really unpacked what I was actually consuming. And I even remember in the beginning, I thought I was eating, low 2000s calorie wise. And it's probably true, although I wasn't tracking at that point, I was probably eating low 3000s calorie wise, which, to be completely honest, I don't even know if my body can sustain that from a maintenance standpoint. It's close, it's close, right? But I'm wondering why I'm not losing weight. And that's why, is because I was eating at maintenance or even a little surplus. And because of the working out and stuff was probably, keeping it within like a range of normalcy. But when what broke down for me is actually like calculating what I really was eating, and that I learned I was eating too much for based on my goals, and then that kind of opened the door to, okay, what does it look like to actually track everything you're consuming, to identify foods that you like, that fit within your kind of ranges and criteria, are helping you hit your goals and keeping you sane. I mean, I think, one of the things that people struggle with probably is that they feel like they've got to eat a bunch of stuff they don't like. And if you say to someone, yeah, you need to, be in a deficit and kind of follow this, rigmarole for 8 or 12 weeks, it sounds just terrible. And that wasn't true for me. I found things that I liked and enjoyed, and not much from like my own like satisfaction. I love eating. I love going out. Like I didn't really sacrifice much from a enjoying my life and enjoying food as a component of my life to achieve my goals. Did I have to make conscious choices at times? Yes, sure. But that's that's part of it. I wasn't, however, like drinking 2 Herbalife shakes a day or something like that, and hating, my life for 8 weeks. Like that just wasn't the case. And so what I broke down was what I was actually eating and then learning what were the micronutrients and components of foods. And once I knew that, I was able to kind of, do the math and put things together and create a plan and a system that worked for me and allowed me to achieve my goals.
Yeah,
I think
I love that.
I think that was the biggest one. And figuring that part out is now, as we've kind of, we can get to this later, as we kind of have mapped out my plan for the rest of the year and into 2021. As it tweaks and shifts and things change, like I feel super equipped to roll with those because I know the areas I know the levers and pulleys to make it happen.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. I think it brings up such a great point to talk about here, which is like, think about how many people out there, we all hear, right? You have to eat in a calorie deficit to lose weight, right?
Right.
Well, here we are thinking that we're eating in a calorie deficit. We're like, there's no way you're not eating in a calorie deficit at these numbers based off what maintenance level of calories should be, right? And it just goes to show, I mean, think about how many people are out there saying, I'm eating in a calorie deficit and I'm not losing weight. And then they're going and blaming it on hormones or whatever, right? And not to say that there aren't some people dealing with hormonal issues, but like 99% of the time, it's like there is usually an issue with logging, right? Like just because you say you're logging doesn't mean that you're logging accurately. And it's okay. I mean, when I first started logging, I wasn't logging accurately either. It's a skill set with a learning curve, right? Like it takes time to build awareness. But once we were able to build that awareness and you were actually able to control that 50% side of the equation, which is food quantity, right? Because we had made tons of great improvements in your habits and improving food quality and all that, but like the quantity side of the equation matters too, right? And as we were able to build awareness there with that, and now as we're moving forward and planning out the next year and a half, right? The awareness that's been built over the last however many months here of tracking is what now enables you to be able to be confident and have that control with manipulating your body composition going forward, right?
Yeah, I think that's the big win, is that I'm confident in how to how to kind of manipulate the stats. Maybe it's just the best way to put it, and not that it's mischievous, but it's this past week we moved me from 2,200 to 2,300 calories, and knowing how to do that, where to do that, where I want to do that. I have like my breakfast routine, and that doesn't need to change. It works for me. It works with my work schedule, etc. And that's locked and good, and it's worth, like, for people who think, gosh, that sounds, terrible. I've also learned a lot about lots of other breakfast foods that on the day when I, just need a break from the routine, or my wife and I are hanging out with friends or whatever, I know how to accommodate that. You and I went through a lot of, especially because when we started working together, it was pre-COVID and I was still traveling a lot. I took 50 flights in 2019. I was on the road and in airports a good bit, and sometimes with, short enough notice that I just didn't quite like get, prepackaged food or was able to grab stuff to bring with me. And so like we did a couple of there's some good text threads like navigating airports and what to eat and how to eat it. And even just one cool like transition was in the beginning feeling a little lost in the airport, having the willpower and desire to make some solid choices in those work moments, but not really knowing exactly how to do that. And now if I were to fly, or whenever we're flying again, I mean, um, yeah, like I know kind of some of my go-to safe zones in an airport concession situation, or the grab and go, or whatever it is. And that's a great example of, that's one little part of life, but that same type of thing, I could apply to lots of other sections. Yeah, even this past weekend, it was Labor Day. We were driving on some like remote roads. There wasn't a ton of options on our drive as far as lunch went. And um, just knowing with limited options, like how to maximize it, what things to go for, what things to avoid, how to, it's definitely true that a lot of restaurants, and if you're not in your own kitchen, those places aren't necessarily catering to someone who's trying to be conscious about their food the way that I am, and most of your other students are. And so knowing how to navigate those menus and find the best things, and kind of stitch together some best practices to survive. Those are breakthroughs, and that's the kind of stuff that you can build habits on and continue carrying through whatever season, right? Whether it's weekly, monthly coaching calls with you, or after that, or whatever it is down the line.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. I think it reminds me of the point that I always say of like, it's not necessarily hard to eat healthy when you go out to eat. It's hard to make the healthy decision when you go out to eat, right? And really the foundation of that though is like, it's that all or nothing mindset, right? Where in the past, if we're traveling, I just can't eat healthy, or I just can't work out,
Right.
right? Or if I'm going out to eat, or if
Right.
I'm on vacation or whatever, it's like, where there's a will, there's a way, right? And a lot of the times
Yeah.
it's just figuring out how to navigate through it, and the effort, right, that you put forth, like being able to reflect back on your effort after the trip, and really just compare it to the previous trip or the previous time going out to eat or whatever it is that's stressing you out, that feels like that's the
Yeah.
thing that's throwing you off. Because I far too often I see so many people that are so fixated on what's going on the minority of the time versus what's going on the majority of the time, right? I mean, the perfect
Yeah.
example is like the holidays. On average, Americans gain 15
Totally.
pounds through the holidays, right? And really the holidays, if we break it down, depending upon what you celebrate there, it's, let's just call it like 10 days or less, right? You don't gain 15 pounds in 10 days. What happens is you start Halloween on the kids' candy, right? And you continue that through New
Yeah.
Year's celebrations, and there
Yeah.
you go. There's the 15, right? So I think getting out of like, and that's, look, I've been guilty of that. I still am guilty of that. I mean, it's something we all struggle with, is that all or nothing mindset. But as we can start to build awareness, and a lot of that awareness is built through, whether it's getting, kind of called out from your coach or your wife or your husband or what, but like
Yeah.
starting to help kind of build awareness, because we tell ourselves stories, right? And whether those stories are, sometimes they're true, sometimes they're not, but we like to tell ourselves stories. And
Yeah.
sometimes we got to be able to get out of our own head to be able to kind of create that awareness of whether the story is true or false. Right.
Yeah. I think there's so many things. I mean, for me, the food, the food nutrition side of it kind of hit in stages. Like the first stage was figuring out what I was eating, what I was buying at the grocery store and then cooking and eating at home. Phase two was like, what does restaurants look like when we're just going out with friends, here in Dallas, Friday night, having a good time, whatever that, and then there were other more kind of nuanced life situations, travel for work, visiting family over, holidays or summer vacations, when maybe you are at home, but those people aren't, cooking and eating like you are. And so how do you sort of, make it happen when you're navigating, multiple families under one roof at an Airbnb or something like that. And so and you're right, that takes time, that takes reps. It takes a couple of work trips before you look back and go, all right, I've developed more of a system. I've developed a better approach. I learned a couple things last trip. In hindsight, I should have maybe done this and it would have like worked a little bit better for me. I think the other breakthrough, and I was a victim of my own ways here, is just pre-planning, especially on the days when you know uh, that you're not in your rhythm. So like today, for example, I'm working from home. I'm here. I know I'm having dinner here. So I will get away and be on track without pre-planning this morning because I'm here and I'm in my system and I know, this is just like a standard Tuesday. But um, let's say this past weekend when I was out of town for the holiday, you know, planning was important. Um, it was, knowing and being ready for and kind of calculating where we were maybe going to be in the day, or getting to restaurants with our friends and knowing how to order so I didn't totally get off track. And to your point, um, coming back today, Tuesday, and being like, yeah, great holiday weekend with friends, celebrated, have had fun, lots of sunshine, lots of outside time. And now today back on the horse, right? Like not um, reminiscing and that I was maybe in a surplus yesterday or Saturday, I think I was, and just today back in my routine, right on track. And I think that's you brought that up. It's a great point that one of the mental skills that you develop and carries with you beyond, or with me, will be kind of the distinct awareness of not reminiscing or lamenting in the days where like the plan didn't go perfect, but just by God's grace, today's a new day, and you can start it that way, and kind of continue to look forward and just keep your eye on the prize. Um, and the beauty, as you point out, is that our bodies respond really well to 9 out of 10 days hitting the mark. Like, amen. Because if not, that would really suck. But good news, it doesn't work that way. And so I think that's an important just kind of mental habit to develop alongside of all these other things.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I think it's something that is transferable into any area of life, right? I mean,
Yeah.
think about with work, think about with your family, think about with whatever. It's like, how long are you really going to let yourself sit in that negative thought, that negative headspace? Like you're going to let it drag off for days and days and days. And obviously there's a degree, some things affect us more than others, but it's like at some point we really do have to, kind of make a decision, right? And decide which way we want to move. Do we want to just sit in this or do we want to move forward? So yeah, I think that's whether we're talking about nutrition, having a bad weekend, or anything else in life there, whether it's business or your career or family or whatever it is, we're all going to drop the ball in these areas of life, right? With these major rocks and these things that we focus on, but at the end of the day, most things we can bounce back from and move forward and fail forward, as I like to say. But yeah, I mean, you're not doing yourself any good just sitting and sulking and feeling bad for yourself and not doing something that's like moving you forward. At the same time, we've all been there, right? Sometimes we need to do that for a period of time. It's just hopefully we don't let it, handcuff us and take us out for a long time, because sometimes we can allow it to go to that dark place as well. So Clark, I always ask this on every kind of client podcast, just because I think it's an interesting question, and a lot of people, it's probably like one of the biggest reasons why people don't, start and go through this journey is why was it important to you to hire a coach and work with a coach one-on-one? Like why? I mean, from an investment standpoint to the amount of time that you were focused on this and putting your energy and efforts into it, like why was it important for you to kind of go through this journey? Because this was very different than like, hey, here's a meal plan, good luck, or a 30-day challenge or whatever, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, that I've worked with, different trainers, done different types of um, workout things, high intensity, kind of standard gym stuff, incorporated cardio, taking cardio out. Like, I've done a number of things throughout life. And really just wasn't seeing the results that I wanted. Um, and then interestingly, I think I also had been influenced some by just social media and different, good exercise folks that I like follow, and just kind of, and seeing, you hear 8-week transformation, 12-week transformation, blah, and that was like, nothing like that had ever occurred for me. And so I really was confronted with like, well, I must be doing something wrong, or clearly I'm missing like a part of the equation here. Because I definitely don't feel like totally ignorant. I'm not starting from ground zero, but also I'm not getting the results that I wanted. And so for me, I knew that it was important to have, uh, someone a lot like you that I had access to. I feel like where we really made like our kind of, you and I's version of in the trenches was a lot of those trips. It was a lot of the restaurants. It was, some of those kind of more nuanced things, like some of the basics at home was pretty easy for us to sort out. I mean, I feel like we, between, first 2, maybe 3 coaching calls, we kind of had that handled. I kind of showed you workouts. We tweaked that a little bit, but like that kind of was generic. Once we figured out my, macro and micronutrient numbers, that took us a couple months, but once we got it, that was like locked in. And so now it was like, all right, you need to stick to your plan. But there was, I think I was on the cusp of, and just like didn't have all of the knowledge that I needed for, to achieve my goals. And so for me, it was that transfer. It was taking an expert in the nutrition space and the exercise science, and having, access to you, and importantly, having access to you in those moments where it's sort of, you're not in the rut, right? There's, life happens. And so it's how do I, life is going to happen. So how do I continue living my life, without throwing the baby out with the bathwater? And I think that was where, the benefit that I received was sort of a combination of very like nuanced moments that, if unaddressed, have a negative impact. But because, we dove into those spaces, like I now have kind of a full suite of tools and knowledge, et cetera, to continue on the path we've laid out for the rest of the year and into next year.
Yeah, I love that, man. It's your nutritional tool belt is built out, right? So, yeah, I mean, there's like I think about this all the time, whether it's with, me hiring my own coach or a business mentor or whatever. It's like there comes a time where we realize if we were going to do it on our own, we would have already done it by now.
That's right.
Right. And that's ultimately kind of where you are at. And, I think the like the mental breakthroughs and education breakthroughs there, I think are obviously a huge piece. I do want to highlight, because I got to give you the shout out for the results, man. You basically, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because it has been a little bit of time since I had this last data point, but basically you ended up dropping about 20 pounds or so, right? And we don't have the exact body fat percentage number change, but body comp picture wise, like 100,000%, we made some great improvements there for sure. We'll be sure to blast all of his before and afters all over the internet.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding, guys.
No, I went back because I was curious too, and you and I talked about this in this, to kind of come full circle. Some people are really, the number is the data point they care about. I didn't come at this with that really. I think the data is super important for tracking and just making sure, you're on the right path. So I went back and looked, and just because I was curious. And so of the data, of the days that I wasn't lazy and put everything in my habit tracker like I was supposed to, 208 to 177 is what I have. And that for me is a significant amount. I mean, that's a body composition change. And then, we figured out too, I mean, obviously your students right now are benefiting greatly from you because uh, COVID has like thrown a wrench in all the traditional ways, that someone would, handle nutrition and exercise. And so, I mean, we were workshopping like crazy how to, I think COVID happened like right in the middle of our kind of plan. And so it was like, how do we not lose everything we've gained? And more importantly, how do we keep going? And so, I mean, we really workshopped that. And that was another, I mean, obviously a very unique circumstance, but and I obviously didn't know about that whenever we started working together. But man, I'm thankful that um, the COVID-19, as people have called it, like I lost 19, not gained it, and so that's pretty cool, and and I'm really pumped about that.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. I think it's we were literally like we had just started like a legit strength training program.
Yeah,
And
that's right. That's right.
You were just about to start. I mean, like, a big piece of changing body composition, as I've always said, is doing strength training, right? We're trying to build muscle, right? When we build muscle, that ultimately is what changes the body composition. So yeah, being able to transition us into, more of a, a play just to get us through COVID. And then like, I'm super excited for you because, as I was telling you in your body comp picks, it's like, we don't have the exact body fat percentage number changes, but we know that you definitely got quite a bit of body fat off you. And then now, as you're about to start, getting back into an actual gym again, doing an actual strength training program, like you have an opportunity now, like you remember the old school methods of like, oh, I gotta cut first and then I'm gonna bulk up. Remember that's what we'd always hear. Right. I mean, in a sense, that's kind of like what you're about to do, which is like you lost a bunch of body fat, right? And like now you have an opportunity, especially as you've been reverse dieting up and like you're eating more than ever at this body weight too. So it's like, it's a unique opportunity for you to really, really, get what you would have gotten if COVID wouldn't have happened. But again, I think that's what working one-on-one with a coach is about, right? Like it's about navigating through these times in your life, these curveballs that get thrown at us, because, at the end of the day, anybody can be perfect when the environment, presents itself. Right. Yeah. But like most of the time, what throws us off is when we have that travel or that, that thing in the family or whatever, that stressor in life that comes up, we have that. And instead of trying to navigate through it, we just completely fall off and we don't prioritize our health. And then eventually we have to prioritize it because we start like feeling like crap or gaining too much weight, or whatever happens there. So, I think that's really a big piece of it. It's like, and that's any coach that I've ever had in my life, right? How can I help you to, of course, I want to educate you and get you the results and equip you with the skill set, the tools, but how can I also help you through and navigate through, and overcome adversity while we're working together so that you feel more confident to be able to do that when you're truly, truly on your own, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, everyone wants to look good and be like functionally kind of fit and athletic, and if it were that easy, everyone would be doing it, right? Or I even think most people, if it only took 6 weeks of really like ratcheting down your habits, and that most people have that willpower. I think if there was, something where it was like, hey, if you do this for 6 weeks, you'll have the composition and the weight and the body fat and the muscle tone and everything that you want. I think most people probably have that kind of willpower. The problem is that like it doesn't work that way. And so I think another thing that we learned with me was that long haul was, super essential. I mean, I had weighed, let's call it 200 pounds for like a long time and wore it well and was used to it. And it wasn't like an issue, but we had to spend time and kind of, almost like ask my body and have it, allow it to get used to being a different weight and kind of a different human with different tone and all of that. And I think that because we went through a reverse dieting, sequence and took the time versus, trying to knock it out quick or something like that. That was another, I don't know that I had ever done that. And I think now, I see the benefits, and that it's almost like I can sense that like my stature feels really comfortable at the weight it is right now, versus like I just lost a bunch of water weight because I did keto for 4 weeks, and so I say all that to say like long haul is important also,
Yeah.
and having a long-term plan and approach.
100%. I mean, I think that's literally like the thing that we're battling most, right? You always hear like Americans don't have problems, or really anybody in general doesn't have problems losing weight. They have problems keeping the weight off, right?
Right.
So for you, like, and I'll get you to kind of like share like the plan going forward. I mean, because really, if we think about it here, right? I mean, the idea of you working with a coach for like years to go through the whole entire process potentially that you go through, like, again, most people, they don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, even with us, like we haven't necessarily gone through everything together, but because of like the consistency you've shown, like I was like, look, I mean, we worked together for a year. Like I feel super confident in you being able to carry this out. And so here is the rest of the plan, if you will, right? Because what I care about most is not the fact that you improve your body comp or lost 20 pounds, but it's like you actually keep that body comp and you
Right.
keep
Yeah.
that weight
Right.
off going forward, right? And then maybe even more importantly, you're able to navigate through life, and because now it's like you're a young cat, right? Like what happens when your testosterone levels start going down? You're in your 50s, 60s, like, and you still will have the tools. Like just because you're older, like it's just, again, it's like I pull up those tool belts, like my age at 75 versus 40 or whatever, like it's the numbers still matter, like tracking my food and like building awareness around. I mean, that part of nutrition is never going to change. So I think having the tools and the skill set to be able to navigate through whatever comes your way going forward. I mean, that's what working with a coach is about. I mean, I think about the same thing with like a business coach. Like I invested a lot in myself for a year working with a business coach. I learned a lot. And I've been able to like transfer that into, 2 years now of not working with a business coach, but still feeling really confident in what I'm doing, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. A good coach coaches you in your current season, and in theory gives you the tools and develops your skills so that you're ready for the next season. I mean, like a JV football coach isn't any good if you're not ready for varsity, right? And so, yeah, the plan going forward, as you and I've kind of outlined, is, between really now and the end of the year, is kind of slowly, methodically reverse dieting back up to what we believe my maintenance calorie number is, which is 2850 for all those. That's what we're kind of targeting.
This is after he just finished it. He finished dieting. He lost 20 pounds ish, right? And so now
that's
this
right.
is the diet after the diet, guys. This is the part right here y'all need to listen to, because so many people don't do this, right? They diet and then they go off the diet. And this part right, he's about to talk about it. This is why it's important to make sure that you go through this journey so that you don't gain the weight back that you just worked so hard to lose in the first place.
Yeah, right. If I just started like eating right now, that would be, it would be all for naught. And so, yeah, we have kind of a tiered, think stairs approach, and slowly over time, going from 2,300 calories, which is what I'm eating right now, up to 2,850, and and tracking obviously micronutrients within that, and uh, and it's going great. I mean, I have the skills to know how to achieve that, and so you keep going and you stick to the plan, and then combine that with strength training, which we were just kind of laughing about that. I think I had done 1 full week of that workout program when all the gyms shut down for COVID. So full circle now, starting that program again. Now that some things are opening back up, and doing that safely.
And that's such another, like the fact that you achieved the body comp changes that you had with essentially just doing like like body
We
weight
were
workouts
dumbbells
and
on the porch.
some
It
dumbbell
was
workouts.
yeah.
Yeah. But nothing like, not like true strength training. Definitely. I mean, your heaviest set of dumbbells was, remind me how much?
45s, and not that those aren't heavy, but I'm a 180-pound man, and so it's certainly at the gym there's heavier stuff, and so it definitely was an abbreviated workout scenario given the times.
When did you feel like you kind of like, quote unquote, like maybe plateaued on some of the stuff that you're doing with
Yeah,
COVID?
I think that's what's going to be really interesting. Both, we I want to say I ate at 2,200 calories for 6 weeks now, which we kind of knew. We were like, okay, you've adjusted, you've figured it out. I think we even noticed kind of in the numbers like that I was still in a deficit and we were seeing declines, but it had gotten normal-ish. And that combined with what you just mentioned, which is that I had like 3 sets of dumbbells and a resistance band, and I think I took 3 sets of dumbbells and a resistance band about as far as you can go, on the back patio. So I want to say, it was 6 or 8 weeks in where it was like, okay, I would love a couple of new things to do or some new tools. But everyone's, we're all dealing and it is what it is. And so I think the important thing is like, don't stop, right? You kept working and kept doing the workouts, kept checking the boxes, and it worked.
Yeah, I mean, where there's a will, there's a way, right? I mean,
Yeah.
think about how many people you've heard that have been like, oh, I can't wait to go back to the gym. I haven't worked out since COVID started. And I'm like, why? Like, you don't have to have a gym to work out. Like, probably you just actually don't want to work out. And so you're using the gym not being open as the excuse as to why you're not working out when you probably weren't even working out before that anyways, So, oh man, gotta love it. The only reason I thought of that is because shout out to Alex's cousin, because he'll never listen to this podcast and hear this, but that's what he told to me, and I literally called him out on it so much. I'm like, we're like joking, but I'm like, dude, you weren't even working out before COVID. What do you? Right. He's like, no, you're right. So
no, I mean, it was, and you and I talked about this. I mean, working from home definitely has, its challenges, and life has been different for the past 6 months than maybe ever before. But it allowed me to dial in and get some work done from on this front of things. And and I think that's I mean, you and I have talked about that. It would be so interesting to, if we could compare, if all things were normal, would I have lost that weight faster or achieved my goal faster if I had access to, full wide open gym and more of like a normal cadence in life and all of that. And you can sit and like noodle on that, but who cares? Like, it is what it is. And consistency, which, you talk about, and certainly I've learned, consistency is the winner. I mean, I think now I'm probably convinced if I were, I'm not an expert by any stretch, but if I were to evaluate someone or someone were to say like, how did you do it? Just answer that question. Like, are you consistent or not? And if you are, it's a pretty dang good shot that you're going to be achieving at least some of your goals, or making positive steps toward them. And I think COVID was super disruptive to people's consistency, and I'm sympathetic to that, and I get it. But in the same way, like we were saying earlier, like if you're off the horse, just get back on. Start today, tomorrow, whatever, and orient what you're working on towards your goals, and consistently chipping at those every day.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, literally, I joke, the 2 words that my clients hear from me more than any other words are consistency and planning. I say those 2 words more than any other word. So 100%. Well, Clark, dude, I want to respect your time here. But last question I have for you, what would, for somebody that is on the fence, I just had somebody message me today. They're like, I've literally been thinking about reaching out to you for it's actually been like years for them, which is kind of crazy. Most of the time it's months.
Oh,
But what would be your advice? I mean, like social media these days, it's like, look, like you can go and look around and see any of these coaches' contents out there. I mean, there's so many great coaches that are out there, but what would be your advice for somebody who is on the fence, maybe thinking about working and investing in themselves and working one-on-one with a coach, whether it's with iCoach or any other program out there? I mean, what would be your advice for those people that are, maybe it's a financial thing, maybe it's the time commitment, just they've been thinking about it though, and they've been thinking about it for some time. Like, what would be that advice for you in terms of just kind of getting them over the fence and knowing where you are now kind of a year later and knowing that it was worth kind of going through that journey?
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone's got to make, you got to make, a decision for you and your family. Certainly it is, a financial commitment, but, like anything in life, advisors and coaches in this case, I mean, that's a part of so many life components, from like, T-ball to like the biggest businesses in the world. So, I think one thing I would suggest people is you and I dialogued early about what I thought I needed, what you thought I needed, what this person mentioned financial stuff, like what I could afford and budget, and certainly, I know you well enough now to know that your goal is not to sign up a client and create additional stress in their life, which hinders their, body composition and workout. So I think that's part of it, right? Figure out what you're up for. An additional benefit is you have skin in the game. And nothing speaks like money speaks. And so when you're paying for a coach and getting great service, you think about the third margarita at taco night a little bit harder, and if that fits into your plan or not. And so, I think all of those things combined is what ultimately pushed me, to signing up, is that we dialogued, we figured out a plan that worked, for me, that you knew would work with your curriculum. And so I would encourage people to like introduce that transparency early, and figure out what makes sense. And I don't know that anyone debates like the value of a coach, right? It's always easier and nicer to have, an advisor that close to the work you're trying to do. So it's just figuring out how to make it happen.
Yeah, no, I think it's great advice. At the end of the day, we prioritize what's important to us, right? And it's got to be, we've got to be ready mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. It's like we've got to be ready, because just like what you mentioned there, like, yes, I 100% agree that the more you pay, the more you pay attention. But there's also plenty of people out there that they think that just by paying and signing up, that now the results are just going to come to them automatically. And really, you're paying to play. You're just getting started with that process there, and it 100% is going to take a lot of work on your end. Like I'll go out of my way and do anything and everything I got to do to get you to be successful, but I can't like hold your hand every single day of your life either, right? So I love it, man. Well, dude, I think there's been lots of value on this podcast. So I hope that everybody that is watching and listening feels the same. Dude, any final thoughts that you have for the podcast here for the listeners? I think we covered quite a bit here.
So much. Yeah, so much. I know it's been a tough 6 months for everyone. And so I think, there's so much good that can come from this season, and kind of keeping your head up and, identifying your goals, going for them, and having, advocates and smart folks in your corner is the way to go about that. The cat says, hey,
I love it. Oh, guest appearance. Awesome. Well, Clark, dude, thank you so much again for taking the time, and until next time, my friend.